We want you to come here to experiment with code, to build your portfolio projects, to mess around, whatever you have an idea you want to express with code, we want to be the place you come to.
That was Per Borgen, co-founder and CEO of Scrimba. I wanted to talk with Per because last week we released Scrimba 2.0 into the world, representing the most significant update to Scrimba ever. This is a complete rewrite of the Scrimba codebase that enhances the experience, adds new features, and lays the important groundwork so that we can release bigger and better courses, plus features that encourage you to get hands-on and become the best developer and builder you can be. It's not just the code that's changed though. Scrimba's fundamentally branching out a little bit, and that's kind of exciting. Here's Per to tell you more. What's new in your world since you were last on the show?
A lot of things. We just launched Scrimba V2, so the complete rewrite and redesign of our app.
V2, it's been a long time coming, am I right?
Oh, too long. It has been, to be honest, literally like 3 or 4 years. It feels so good to finally be on the other side of that.
Well, I'm so glad to have you on because I know some people going to scrimba.com today, they're going to be experiencing a brand new experience and they might be wondering a bit about what's this all about?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a complete rewrite of the entire platform, complete redesign, and we are changing around a lot of different things. So we are going from being just a school to also being a tool. We are going from being a closed platform where only Scrimba teachers create content into being an open platform where anyone can come on and create their own scrims and templates and even courses. And perhaps the most important thing, we are on a very solid foundation now. So Scrimba V1 was a little bit of building on a house of cards. It was a lot of technical depth. But now with V2, we have a super solid foundation that will enable us to run faster than we ever have in the history of Scrimba.
Scrimba is quite a complicated technical product when you think about it, with the nature of scrims, very unique. It must have been quite a lot of work to port that over to a new version and eliminate technical debt in the process.
Yes, it has been a lot of hassle. And with all the users and the data that's in the courses and everything that's been built up, just the migration itself was a ton of work. But also, what made it even more work is that we haven't only rebuilt Scrimba from scratch, we've actually also rebuilt the tools to build Scrimba.
What?
Kind of counterintuitive and against most startup advice. But what we've done is built a new version of the underlying programming language that we've built Scrimba on top of. Because as you know, Scrimba is built on Imba, which is a programming language for the web. And we built a new version of Imba and a framework or data layer for Imba tailored towards building apps like Scrimba. So we've really kind of tried to reinvent the wheel here, which is something all investors tell you to not do. You should rather launch quickly and iterate.
Yeah.
We have really went all in, and yeah, took some years, but finally we're here.
That is next level. And you saying that reminds me of something, which is that there are like a ton of programming topics that there could be Scrimba courses on, right? Like people request courses all the time on different subjects. And obviously as a smaller startup, you have to choose where to prioritize and invest your time. What made it so important to invest time in rebuilding the foundations instead of like cranking out more courses, which have proven to be really successful already?
Time will tell whether it was the right thing to do to go back and rebuild it from scratch. I'm pretty sure it was because, as I said, like Scrimba V1 was largely a house of cards that had been built over the years as we explored many different directions. And what we saw was that building new features on Scrimba V1, it just took too much time. We weren't able to build it in the way we wanted. The result wasn't as performant or as polished or as it didn't work as well, essentially, as we wanted it to work. So we realized we needed to get the foundations right here in order to, for example, launch new programming languages on top of Scrimba. Then we need a super solid editing experience. We need a super solid IDE itself. And that couldn't grow out of the previous version of Scrimba. So it has been, to be completely honest, been a challenging period to rebuild this from scratch.
4 years in the making.
Yeah, 4 years in the making. It has been a challenging period at times, especially with so many users wanting these new features and wanting Scrimba to improve. But now we're here and we're going to be able to run faster than ever before. So yeah, it's going to be epic.
I'm looking at the new experience right now, and I've actually made Scrimba full screen. So like it could be a desktop app if I didn't hover and see the browser bar. And it's like, it's just so delightful. Like it's fast. There's little user interactions, like how when you click on the React course, there's like a blue glow at the top. And when you switch to JavaScript and it turns to yellow. Obviously, the eye-catching details are first to mind, but there are some deeper improvements here as well. I'm also trying to see what I can learn by looking at the structure of the navigation, because you have like this home where you can quickly jump back into what you were learning. There's also courses and topics, but something that I don't think has had as much prominence before, but now is right there at the top, is this idea of templates where you can quickly spin up, for example, a React template or maybe a TypeScript template. Does this perhaps feed into this idea where you can envision more users using Scrimba not only as a learning platform, but maybe as a starting point to build a project and flesh it out without having to worry about, creating a local project and spinning up all the local tooling? Plus, of course, the link should be shareable, I would imagine, if you create something on Scrimba too.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those things where we take a step from being just a school to be more of a tool. We're taking responsibility, essentially, of a larger part of your learning journey. So not just going through courses and learning and solving challenges and growing your skills, but also the building part of learning, which is just as important, I would say, as when you are kind of acquiring the skills themselves, because you got to put them into practice. And this template picker, which you were looking at, is a super fast way of quickly scrubbing through a bunch of different templates, trying out all of them instantly, and then deciding, this one feels right for me. This has the setup I want for React. It has the Tailwind or Bootstrap or Bulma or whatever CSS framework, and it has the folder structure I want. Boom, I'll start from here and hit the ground running. So we're trying to kind of get as many cool templates in front of you to make it as easy for you as possible to just get started building your next portfolio project or playing around with the new technology or whatever. So that's why we've kind of floated the templates to the very top.
Previously, users came to Scrimba to learn and interact with like lessons and courses and scrims and this kind of stuff. But now, can you imagine people using Scrimba as like an alternative almost to some of the existing online code editors that let you spin up quickly and share the project with your friends?
Yeah, that's one of the things we want to support you doing. We aren't supporting that wide range of frameworks or languages yet. But for what you learn on Scrimba in the front-end developer career path, for example, you can definitely build through scrims instead.
That's so exciting. And what about the editing experience? Because I guess VS Code is probably the gold standard for all the plugins and all these keyboard shortcuts and this kind of stuff. Scrimba was always in a very good place in terms of interacting with scrims. Does the new version have parity with the previous version, or are there some improvements as well to the editing experience?
Lots of improvements, much under the hood, of course, but specific things is that we now have commit support. So you can add commits in your code whenever you want.
From Scrimba?
Yeah. So we're not syncing it with GitHub yet, but that'll come, obviously. Though you can have it inside of the scrims, so you can easily scrub back and forth in your commits. And actually, even more than that, we register every keystroke and every interaction you do inside of a scrim and record it all. So you can rewind back, not just to a commit, but actually when you were typing out the CSS for this specific button and you kind of digressed and you messed up after that, you can rewind back in time to just that point and continue on from there, or fork it at that point, or just see out of curiosity what you were doing. So we're trying to improve the Git possibilities, actually.
At one point, Scrimba was very, going back years, frankly, Scrimba was very open to having external teachers come on the platform and teach. And they were great courses, and oftentimes they would make use of the Scrim formats by inviting students to interact with the code and complete challenges. But over the course of a few years, Scrimba really learned how to take full advantage of that Scrim format. Everything had to be interactive. There had to be projects and solo projects, challenges, all these things associated. And I would say that the pedagogy and the slides and the formats, it all kind of took a similar shape, you could say, as we figured out the best practices for teaching new developers. So Scrimba used to have quite a few external contributors. Over the years, all the teachers became in-house. And I've always thought to myself, as someone who makes YouTube videos teaching code, I'd kind of like to do it on Scrimba because of the formats. I think it's great for pedagogy. How could it look in this new world of Scrimba? Could perhaps people record their own scrims and share them and maybe even create courses in the future and things like that?
Yeah, that is one of the things we have done. Opened it up to anyone to create. As you say, it was technically possible to create scrims before, but it was a very clunky thing. It was hidden. You couldn't do much with the content. Now you can pick a template, create a scrim of it, write some code, click record your tutorial, even put that in your own organization and gather it together with multiple other scrims into a playlist or a course and build up this little Alex Booker coding school, for example, easily. So your dream can come true of that school. Anyone can do that, and you can get followers on it, and essentially we'll see where it takes you.
So just like I could make a YouTube channel and start teaching coding, I could basically, I guess you'd call it a profile or something in Scrimba, but I could make something equivalent and start to grow my follower accounts in the way I might on YouTube.
Exactly. And now we have a follow concept. That's actually quite powerful, because whether it's you, like your personal Alex Booker account, whether it is your organization account, whether it's a topic or a course, or you can follow whatever you want, essentially. So it's possible for you to build your own personal Scrimba brand or your personal Scrimba channel, you could say. And it's possible for the students themselves to personalize it on their end, like following the exact creators they want to follow and the exact topics and organizations.
I'm so excited about that, because you mentioned individuals, but then you mentioned teams or companies. And I could see like teams doing this for internal type, scrims to talk about their code. But also, for example, if you're an open source project, let's just dream here for a second, Per, and say React had a Scrimba profile.
Yes.
There could be all kinds of scrims teaching new React concepts.
I would love that. And that is the attention. So we got to probably start with some smaller projects and then build our way towards the bigger ones.
Is there, or are there any plans to add an almost social or discoverability element to it? Because as a creator, one reason I go to YouTube is because I can reach new people, right? Because of the recommendations and maybe through the social aspects. Is that something on your mind at all when it comes to the latest update to Scrimba?
It is. It's not in the feature set of V0 or V2.0, which is out now, but it is definitely coming. We're going to pull the community much more into Scrimba and float the content. Because, of course, if you invest time in building cool scrims and templates and record your own courses, we have to help you with the discoverability.
I'd love to see like a community tab or nav item with like a trending tab within it, maybe, so that you can just see what's trending and learn something new, maybe.
Totally.
So one reason developers have come to love Scrimba is, for the courses, the pedagogy, the career path, all this kind of stuff. Talk to me a little bit about what the future of education looks like on Scrimba. Are there any kind of new courses in the works? And would they perhaps take advantage of the new updates to Scrimba to make them even more engaging and better for learning?
One thing which is an immediate improvement upon the previous Scrimba in the course learning experience itself is the small ghosts you'll see on the timeline. So now, when you get to a challenge, we auto pause for you and force you to actually get your hands on the keyboard.
What? So I won't hit Bob Zerol saying, okay, now pause the video and try this for yourself anymore. The video will pause.
We've recorded all of our courses with that sentence. So they will still be there for a little while until we figure out how to edit it out, or maybe some kind of AI that modifies it.
Oh.
That would be cool. But for now, we auto-pause after Bob has said that. And then you have to code and submit your solution, or you can cancel your solution and continue on without. But then you have to actually confirm that you want to do that, because we really want to push you to get your hands on the keyboard. And one thing we've been playing around with is getting AI to give you feedback on your solution there and then, which is like an obvious thing to do. So it can pick up, you actually seem to be misunderstanding React props here a little bit. So how about you do this and that, and then you might be able to solve it.
I'd love to learn a bit more about the role of AI in this new update to Scrimba. But just quickly on the topic of courses, is there anything upcoming that we can look forward to? Maybe any future plans? backend courses, maybe?
Backend content is coming. We have a developer working full-time on just implementing Node.js support, and he's come very far. Going to have backend courses on Express and Next and whatnot. Also, an advanced JavaScript course is coming, which goes a little bit beyond what we teach you in the front-end developer career path. And by the time I think this podcast has been launched, I think also we'll have a course on what's new in React 19 from Bob Zerol, our React guru. So I think people are going to love that. And also, he has created a TypeScript course. We have 2 previous TypeScript courses. They will still be accessible from some links, but it took some time to nail that subject, actually.
TypeScript is very much dependent on like the TypeScript compiler, isn't it? So there has to be a very tight integration with Scrimba that's seamless. I can imagine that's quite difficult to nail while also nailing the course.
Yes, exactly.
What about paths? One of Scrimba's most successful exports is the front-end developer career path that brings together in a series a few different courses, which you could watch independently, but you will often choose to watch as part of a path because it guides you, from one topic to the next one and doesn't really let you move on until you've mastered one. So you're building from the right foundation. Is there a plan to add more paths or maybe make that part of the new website? I always kind of imagine like a little map where you kind of, go from top to bottom, A to Z, whatever. Yeah, how are you thinking about paths these days?
So we launched our second path last year, as you know, the AI engineer path. And we're continuing to improve that. And as AI develops, we need to keep it up to date and add the latest cool things you can build with AI. But then, of course, the big question is backend. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how paths plus backend will look like. There are many ways we could do this. We could expand our front-end developer career path to be more of a general full-stack developer career path by implementing backend to it. We could create a backend developer career path itself, just a track for that. Or we could create a full-stack developer career path that lives side by side with a front-end and maybe also even a backend. So I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, how we'll solve it, but we'll definitely have the content for you to take a step from just knowing front-end into being a full-stack.
Talk to me a little bit about the rebrand, because the new iteration of Scrimba could not look more different, honestly.
Yeah. Scrimba, the first version, was very playful. It had these pastel colors, it had these cartoonish characters, it had shapes, and it was very different from other code learning platforms. And that was because we wanted to communicate to people that it's not that hard to learn to code. You don't have to be like a serious person to learn how to code, or a geeky person, or like these stereotypes people have of a software developer. Like, learning to code is creative, it's fun, you can be playful, and you can build whatever you can think. It's so empowering.
It's not as scary as it sometimes looks.
Yes, scary, exactly. We want it to be the opposite of scary, like very friendly, almost childish in our branding. And I think a lot of people really resonated with that. And we brought a lot of new people into coding, or we helped a lot of new people get into coding thanks to that. With Scrimba 2.0, we're no longer just a school, we're also a tool. The editor in Scrimba has kind of taken the center stage. We want you to come here to experiment with code, to build your portfolio projects, to mess around, whatever you have an idea you want to express with code, we want to be the place you come to. And that means the editor experience and kind of the overall site experience needs to blend much more into each other, and it needs to be one coherent experience throughout the editor and the site. So then we were forced with a decision of either have to take the existing playful branding and put it into the editor, make the editor very, very childish and playful as well, or go the other way around and take the kind of more serious editor IDE design and blend that into the site. We debated both a little bit, actually, but we quickly realized that an editor needs to be very functional in its design to be a good editor. We've seen some attempts at making editors very playful and childish. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we realized then, okay, let's just embrace that. We'll make Scrimba super slick, super elegant, professional, and that'll put someone off. It looks a bit more like serious now, it does, but we are going to work hard to breathe life into the entire page, thus making it at least playful and make it feel alive, even though, yeah, it is darker and more professional. And yeah, For those wondering, light theme is coming as well.
You don't normally hear that. You hear developers requesting dark mode, not light mode, more often than not.
Yeah, but a lot of beta testers have requested it. So
yeah, when I saw the new design, I mean, I thought it was incredibly sleek, but I'd come attached, I suppose, to the playful, approachable nature of Scrimba. And obviously doing so many podcast interviews with people who tell me that they were finding coding a bit intimidating and, you know, they found a warmth about Scrimba and approachableness. That being said, it didn't necessarily come from the brand. I mean, first of all, a lot of the people I spoke to came from other code learning websites with very serious brands, and that put them on the track. It didn't scare them away. It's when they heard the teachers. That's what makes the difference, right? The warm, friendly way in which they guide you. They don't use language like, oh, you know, we should do it this way for obvious reasons, or like, here's some code I wrote earlier, and then it's like 1,000 lines you don't understand. Like, that's where the approachableness comes in the most substantial way that matters. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of that is going away.
No, not at all. That's like at its core of how coding should be taught. No one likes to listen to a boring teacher that assumes a lot of skills beforehand. So I think people will find once they kind of get past the initial design, they will meet the same friendliness and playfulness in the app. And actually, we're going to breathe life and playfulness into the app design itself and the interactions and transitions and animations and stuff like that.
I'm so excited to watch it evolve. I think whenever a company or a development team does a migration, there's always like a wish list and then there's like a must-have list. And usually the product ends up somewhere in between, understandably, as you aim to get something out the door, but also getting it out in a reasonable time. It looks like the latest iteration is in a great place and you can do everything you could before and more. But to your point, Per, like this is the starting point now, right? Like it'll be a lot quicker, a lot more efficient to add new features, whether they be to improve the editor experience, for example, but also bring you some delight. It doesn't sound so impactful maybe to be delighted when you're learning to code, but I think it does matter. Like it's something you do every day, all day for a long time. And those little reliefs where, you laugh or you're like, oh, that's really nice. Like, yeah, I think it definitely contributes to the experience.
Totally. That's kind of on the teacher side, the energy the teacher team put into Scrimba of making it playful and fun and just friendly. That helps. And also the same passion that our developer team puts into, for example, making the app performant is also something that is there to kind of help you ease in your day, actually, because who doesn't hate those loading bars?
Yeah.
So we're putting a ton of effort into we're looking at speed as one of the core features of Scrimba. You're never going to experience lagging or those loading bars, or at least to a minimum at Scrimba compared to all other platforms.
I like that so much because you've been talking about a tool, not just a school, and you want your tools to be fast as a developer. There's a reason people use editors like Code instead of full-fledged IDEs because they come with bloat that people don't necessarily want. And so if you're going to rely on Scrimba as a tool, then obviously the editor has to be rapid. It has to be very quick to access, to load and code with, obviously. But then you think about the courses, and it's really interesting because I think one of Scrimba's advantages that maybe a lot of us don't really appreciate because we're connecting from countries with fast internet or we just have fast internet is that the Scrim is a very lightweight format compared to like a bloated 4K, for example, video on a different platform. Or worse, maybe it isn't 4K, but it's compressed a lot and it loads kind of quickly, but then the quality's not that great compared to like the rendered text, which is always going to be as sharp and nice as possible. So I think it's kind of an example of playing on Scrimba's advantage a bit there, maybe, because only Scrimba with that lightweight Scrim format could be the fastest if only the experience and the dashboard was rapid as well, which as I click around and like I say, I'm really enjoying using Scrimba full screen with no title bar because it feels very immersive and like a desktop application and it loads just as quickly as well.
Yes, and as you say there, it having it both in the Scrim and in the interface itself is super important. And it's not a coincidence that we have that. Our CTO, Sindra, whom you know, he is obsessed with performance and speed and is optimized the hell out of both the interface and the Scrim format. It's so prematurely optimized, or at least used to be so prematurely optimized. But once you hit scale and have a lot of users and people use it a ton and they have a lot of data, these things really add up, and most software just degrades towards being slow and bad. So we really want to avoid that with Scrimba, and we're going to make it. It's going to continue to be super fast.
By the way, have you come across students using things like ChatGPT and Copilot more and more in recent years while they're learning to code? I don't know about you, but I'm often like opening ChatGPT to like ask for help with my code. And I wonder from like a learning point of view, what role AI could play without also like compromising the learning experience if you come to depend on it a bit too much.
I think it comes down to how you use it. If you just get ChatGPT to write a bunch of code for you that you don't understand and you never really take the effort to try and understand it, I don't think you'll get very far with what you build, and you won't learn that much either. Though if you use it as a sidekick that can help you just create your ideas faster and get to a state you are excited about faster, though also trying to keep up with it and understand what's going on, then I think it's a revolution when it comes to learning. And it's also a revolution in terms of when it comes to building, because you can build a lot faster, of course.
You touched on an AI feature inside of Scrimba earlier. What about more generally? How will AI change code learning, do you think?
So I think it's a revolution for code learning. It'll enable a lot more people to build software, and it can enable people to learn a lot faster. So we are surely going to embrace AI inside Scrimba. We could have thrown it into V1 as well. We had some prototypes, but we waited because we want to do this right. And there's a ton of potential there. And though just the average chatbot that everyone else has, that's not where we think all the potential is, or the potential is realized. Of course, it's great, but that's a first step. And we want to be able to go past that. Yes, it will change how people are learning, I think. And one thing I'm especially excited about is how it enables you to kind of front load the fun and delay some of the boring parts.
I love that.
Learning to code at Scrimba has never been about like, oh, you got to learn about data types in JavaScript because that is what developers know about. No, it's like you got to learn about data types in JavaScript because the poker app you're building, since you're a poker fan, uses obviously various different data types. It's always been about the underlying purpose you have, or why you are building something. And then and ideally get you to experience building something before you have to learn about all of those quote unquote boring things. And I think AI really puts this on steroids, where you can quickly throw out a prototype of something and then start understanding it. Because once you've kind of built Alex's awesome poker app, then you're motivated. I mean, even more than starting with a blank slate. You'd be motivated to like, oh, I want to tweak this color a little bit. I want to change this feature a little bit. And like, it gives you such a strong incentives for diving into the code. So we want to embrace that both from kind of a curriculum side and the feature side on Scrimba. Like, how can we make it easier for people to spin up their ideas using AI?
Are there any kind of ideas that are top of mind for you that you would like to explore further?
So I'm thinking a lot about the voice modality that have grown to more and more prominence over the last year. Because we humans, we prefer to communicate via voice, right? But coding is all about writing. Though if you have a assistant, right, or a senior developer right side by side with you, you wouldn't sit there and write about the code back and forth to each other. You would communicate through voice instead. So it's kind of that intersection of voice and code I'm super interested in. Scrimba has been about voice and plus code ever since its inception. But now it's voice plus code plus AI. And I think there's just so many interesting things we can do in that space.
So it could almost be, and we're just dreaming, to be clear, like this isn't a feature coming to Scrimba tomorrow, but maybe one day. It could be almost like, when you're pair programming, say you and I are pair programming, and then I'm like, oh, pair, maybe you should call that function. And then you're like, okay, I'll type it. And then we both realize it's not working. And like, you almost as a learner, even though AI is basically omniscient and could know the answer, you almost don't want it to tell you the answer. You want it to play as if it's, because it might not, right? Like if it's right 90% of the time, if it's wrong 10% of the time, that's still enough to lose confidence in it a little bit. But if you can instead leverage all that knowledge to go back and forth, but ultimately you decide what is, like, even if the AI could suggest it and be like, oh, we haven't done this yet, maybe we should try that. What do you think, Alex? What do you think, Per? Do you know what I mean? Like it could be this back and forth type of thing. I'm imagining somewhere between like pair programming and the movie Her, where Scarlett Johansson is like replying to you about your code.
And you fall in love with your pair programmer.
It was love at first semicolon.
No, it's super interesting and something we're going to explore. But of course, it's a lot of R&D and playing around that we can't promise exactly how it'll be, but that will explore that direction is for sure.
Sounds like Scrimba's in the best place to do it now with this new version and new code base.
Yes.
And yeah, so exciting to learn all about the motivation and what we can look forward to as students and users. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Likewise, great to be here.
That was the Scrimba podcast. If you made it this far, please subscribe. You can find the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can also watch it on YouTube on Scrimba's YouTube channel. If you like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, the best way to support a podcast that you like is to tell somebody about it. You can do it on socials, you can do it on Discord, you can do it in person, you can leave us a comment on YouTube, or if you're feeling super supportive, you can also leave us a rating or a review in your podcast app of choice. And your coolest comments will also be featured right here on the show. The Scrimba podcast is hosted by Alex Booker and produced by me. I'm Jan Arsenovic. Thanks for listening. Keep coding. Check out the brand new Scrimba at scrimba.com. And we'll see you in the next one.